This is a video about Palantir, the most terrifying and bloodthirsty tech company on the planet.
Our product is used on occasion to kill people.
But before we get there, I want to go back in time to July of 2010, when two people on the geek forum Less Wrong got into an argument about the future of artificial intelligence, which resulted in the thought experiment called Rocco's Basilisk. Now, as a warning, if you haven't heard of Rocco's Basilisk before, then I wouldn't blame you if you want to go skip to the next video in your queue, because some people believe that merely knowing about this idea is enough to doom you to an eternity of hellish torture at the hands of a malevolent AI overlord. So skip ahead if you need to. But if not, and you're still here, let's get into it. Rocco's Basilisk argues that artificial intelligence, by its very nature, is all but destined to achieve dominance over the planet by accelerating its own computational powers into a self-reinforcing cycle where it grows exponentially. This is what's known as the singularity. But the biggest hurdle to achieving this goal is the time that it takes to reach that super powerful form. The internet user Rocco believed that it was possible for a non-existent artificial intelligence to will itself into existence from the future by blackmailing the humans of today. Now, specifically, this would mean that an AI would torture anyone who didn't spend every possible resource in the present day to bring about its existence in the future. It's merely by learning about this idea of Rocco's Basilisk, you are either doomed to an eternity of torture, or you must spend your life making sure that the torturer becomes a reality. Now, if that all sounds a little convoluted to you, yeah, you would be right, because it reverses causality and posits that an effect can come before a cause. And yet, this idea has traction among a certain segment of the technological oligarchy, particularly among a community known as effective altruists, or alternatively, accelerationists, who advocate for a reckless advancement of technology above all other considerations. But even if Rocco's Basilisk is not real, and that there isn't a time-traveling or at least time-influencing AI in the future, people might still be unwittingly bringing this technology into existence anyway. And this is where Palantir sits at something of a crossroads. This one super powerful artificial intelligence company has won billions of dollars in government contracts and, despite its ministrations to the contrary, almost definitely centralizes all personal data on every person alive today into a single repository that they control. Now, we already know that its algorithm and mass surveillance capabilities can both predict what individuals might do next and track their movements in real time. Paired with lethal military hardware and detention facilities and black sites run by the government, it looks a lot like every evil omni-corporation in pulp science fiction books from Skynet to E-Corp.
The people are realizing they don't have freedom of choice so long as you exist. The people are waking up, no longer accepting your economic slavery.
But wait, it gets worse. I looked up the original post by the user Rocco and found that there was more to the Basilisk than the eerie blackmail proposition that YouTubers and the media have generally focused on. The original title, before it was taken down by the site's admin for being an existential risk to its readers, was, quote, "Solutions to the Altruist's Burden, the Quantum Billionaire Trick." It's mostly philosophical gobbledygook. Just take this sentence, for example. This seems to be what CEV, coherent exploitative volition of humanity, might do if it were an acausal decision maker, and with a footnote that goes underneath it to explain what that means. But I can almost puzzle out what it was trying to say, but I'm not sure it's worth it. The post doesn't even mention the word basilisk a single time. The moniker actually came a few months later when another user said that the argument resembled the Greek mythological creature whose mere gaze can turn a person to stone. And as an aside, I first learned about a basilisk while playing Dungeons and Dragons as a kid, and it's a hell of a monster. Anyway, after briefly describing the AI's blackmail plot, Rocco pivots to the inexplicable rise of Elon Musk as a titan of industry and his plan to colonize Mars. Rocco holds Elon up as an ideal and says that everyone who thinks that this basilisk idea is plausible should attempt to become a tech billionaire themselves in his image by trusting in the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. And that interpretation of physics is what fuels the Marvel universe, as well as Rick and Morty, where every possible outcome of any action spawns an entirely new universe into a multiverse. And Roko's logic goes that if there's an infinite number of outcomes for any action, then if you place a $30,000 bet on a random stock, there is a future somewhere that stock will go up like 10,000% and make you a Muskian billionaire who can invest in dominant AI technology. And that the act of doing that investment will save you from eternal torture. Yeah, it's a ludicrous idea that compounds speculation on pseudo-logic with an outlier theory in physics. But one thing that does catch my attention is the idea that Musk is so central to the AI singularity and that the basilisk wager that he will be favored by our future AI overlords. Indeed, there's a whole cohort of tech billionaire accelerationists who are the good guys in this future where AI is actually in the business of torturing its enemies for all eternity. Now, at its heart, effective altruism and also something called dark enlightenment among the technorati is simply a modern iteration of Machiavellianism where the ends justify the means with a technological overlay where a super technological society is like basically heaven. The most positive spin on it is that since technology will solve all of the world's problems, absolutely any action that a person takes to make ultra-efficient and powerful technology, particularly these days in artificial intelligence, is a boon to the planet. And this is exactly what Peter Thiel has said in the past.
We could never win an election because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through a technological means.
Peter Thiel is one of the two founders of Palantir, and you've no doubt heard about him before. He's the tech billionaire who first made his fortune along with Elon Musk when they founded PayPal. He wants to live forever. He was instrumental to dismantling free speech protections for the media with his lawsuit against Gawker and is generally the embodiment of a preposterous tech villain. He also heavily donated to J.D. Vance's political career. But the thing that was so important from that clip that I just played is that he makes it plain that he wants to use technology to subvert the democratic process. His ultimate goal, which he has laid out in public lectures and writings, is to remake the world system to support the initiatives of technological autocrats like him. And yeah, also he was, unsurprisingly, a major funder to Trump's re-election campaign. The other founder of Palantir is this guy with the amazing hair, Alex Karp. Here he is describing his vision for the company.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
And he's got some tactics that he playfully says that he would never use, but also that he might totally use.
I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us.
The thing that sets Palantir apart from most tech ventures out of Silicon Valley is that it enthusiastically embraces close connections to the government, which is weird since both of its founders seem so anti-democracy. Palantir's suite of tech tools are a surveillance state's wet dream. The corporation pioneered predictive analytics first despite fraud in Medicare and Medicaid with a $250 million in funding from the Obama administration, and then quickly metastasized across the government information infrastructure over the last decade to provide intelligence analysis and predictive policing with an alphabet soup of three-letter agencies from the CIA and FBI to DHS and ICE. It's also a core asset in intelligence gathering operations in all branches of the American Armed Forces. And in 2016, and this part is important, it acquired a company called Kimono Labs, which specialized in hoovering up and archiving all publicly available information on the internet, sort of like a private version of the Wayback Machine. And the reason that I'm highlighting this purchase is that Palantir's owners frequently state that they are in the business of software and not data brokers.
You know, the Palantir platform, despite what you might read at the New York Times, if you wanted to use the deep state to unlawfully surveil people, the last platform on the world you would pick is Palantir.
But frankly, I just don't believe what Karp is saying. If that were true, then it wouldn't make any sense as to why they would bother purchasing a data scraping company. Indeed, what is the point of surveillance if it's not also recording and then utilizing all that information? What everyone can agree on, however, is that its systems and philosophy are based on the Air Force's manual on targeting, specifically identifying, acquiring, and if need be, destroying military objectives.
We are the most lethal, we are the most able to surveil and process large amounts of data.
You have created the system which you call kill chain.
Privately. Publicly, the lawyers have some innocuous something like tech for the amelioration of unwanted blah, blah, blah. Some term we're supposed to use.
Okay, let's...
for me, it's the kill chain.
Kill chain sounds good.
This kill chain is not just for military targets, let's remember that. It's actually for everything that Palantir puts its hands on. Killing doesn't only mean death, but actually eliminating the effectiveness of the opponents of the people who hire Palantir.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination.
And Palantir's footprint is everywhere. Various Palantir systems are being used on the front lines of the war in Ukraine. They were crucial to tracking down and killing Osama bin Laden, and integral to the Israeli military's operations across Gaza, just to name a few. In other words, Palantir has been a central driving force for all modern warfare where information leads directly to operational objectives. The superpowers it enables don't come with inbuilt ethics, which means that it effectively enables governments and corporations to improve their kill chains regardless of the legitimacy of the government's aims in general. And let's bring this up to the present day. Under the second Trump administration, Palantir processes data across the government. We're talking from Social Security and Medicare, to criminal records, to biometrics, to travel logs. And well, given the leaks over at Doge over the last 4 months, let's just assume that they have access to every single personal record on every person who has left a digital footprint anywhere online or with the public ever. And through the magic of artificial intelligence, all of those records are cross-linked together to be used however Palantir's effective altruist founders or the government deems fit. The immigration raids that are happening across the United States right now couldn't happen at scale without something like Palantir. Protesters are being surveilled and their faces cataloged and cross-linked so that they can predict how those people might act in the future. And this isn't so different from what Google does to predict your browsing habits or Amazon to predict your shopping habits, just in case that these protesters might become targets for future government operations. Okay, so you get it. Palantir is an evil, panoptic corporation ripped right out of the pages of a dystopian science fiction novel. It is Big Brother, but what does it have to do with Rocco's basilisk? Honestly, maybe nothing. Perhaps Rocco's basilisk was simply a thought experiment that germinated out of the same philosophical soil that Peter Thiel and Palantir's other founders promote. I couldn't find any direct writings by Karp, Thiel, or even Elon Musk specifically addressing Rocco's basilisk. No one in power is claiming that they are being influenced by a future AI to bring it into existence. However, what I can say is that the infrastructure that Palantir created offers all of the mechanisms that a government or evil tech company would need to turn the world into an AI-powered police state. With all of your information captured by AI surveillance companies and integrated into a kill chain of military, police, and government targeting, we are already living inside Rocco's thought experiment. Maybe you've heard the term obeying in advance, which is the idea that people cave to authoritarian regimes simply because they fear what might happen to them if they're seen as disloyal to a regime that will be even more powerful in the future. That's Rocco's basilisk.
The list of tech executives heading to Mar-a-Lago to meet with the president-elect is growing.
And we've already seen this among tech barons and honestly a lot of citizens around America who are obeying in advance. And this got me thinking about the 2024 election itself. Because when I started looking into Rocco's Basilisk and Palantir, I sort of ended up in this deep rabbit hole of circumstantial evidence that I think is at least worth raising in this video.
What's the secret, Donald? What's the secret, Mike? Is the secret somehow wound up in these numbers I'm seeing that don't make sense?
I think my ballot was part of the burning ballot boxes that were on fire.
Now, ordinarily, I don't like circumstantial evidence and have to admit in advance that what I'm about to tell you probably isn't enough to get someone convicted in a court of law. This might be nothing more than a conspiracy theory, but at least hear me out. If Peter Thiel really meant what he said, that he could subvert democracy with technology, then maybe that includes being willing to use his resources to try to tilt an election in a way that benefits his end goals, not just through donating money to political causes, but by directly subverting the technology that makes elections happen.
Maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through a technological means.
Since the 2024 election, an organization called the Common Coalition has gathered data showing statistical irregularities in swing states, with people voting for Trump at the top of the ticket, but going blue down the rest of the ballot. And it seems contrary to every election before it. Indeed, think about this for a minute. How many people have you personally spoken to, or maybe even seen post on social media, who have said that they are going to split their ballot in that way? Most people that I have encountered were all in on Trump or all in on Harris at the top of the ballot and all the way down. Additionally, Common Coalition shows that Leonard Leo, now you might have heard that name before because I've talked about him in this video by David Sirota. Well, he's the vice president of the Federalist Society and a Republican political operative. Well, Leonard Leo sold an election hardware company that services 70% of the voting machines in America to something called Eaton Corp. Now, a few years ago, Eaton Corp partnered with both Tesla and Palantir to remotely activate and update the hardware being used in election systems via satellite connections. Common Coalition argues that the devices could even access air-gapped machines that are not specifically connected to the internet. They show records that 90 days before the election, at the same time that Elon tweeted that he was, quote, introducing a glitch into the matrix, that Eaton Corp uploaded malware that could have infiltrated voting machines and ultimately flipped votes without anyone noticing. Their theory is maybe a little bit convoluted. The main body of evidence is being laid out in a lawsuit that's moving slowly through state courts. Now, I've tried to fact check some of those claims, particularly about whether or not the technology they describe was able to flip votes without leaving a paper trail behind it. And I came up against the limits of what's possible to know for sure pretty quickly. What I can say is that right after the election, Trump seemed to thank Elon Musk for his help, not for his political support and campaigning, but for his technical know-how with computers.
And then he journeyed to Pennsylvania, where he spent like a month and a half campaigning for me in Pennsylvania. And he's a popular guy, and he was very effective. And he knows those computers better than anybody, all those computers, those vote-counting computers. And we ended up winning Pennsylvania like in a landslide, so it was pretty good. It was pretty good. So thank you to Elon.
Now, this all seems like a lot of smoke for what maybe is a fire, but I have to admit, my suspicions come down to character assessments. I just don't trust Trump, and I don't trust our tech oligarchs one bit. Trump had been accusing Democrats of rigging elections for pretty much 8 years straight. Given a broad history of political leaders interfering with elections, I don't see why he wouldn't have tried to tip the scales to his advantage. And doing so would certainly fit in what we know about the methods of tech billionaires to literally move fast and break things. When they act unethically in so many other realms, I don't see why they would not also try to covertly break democracy too. Now, I'll link to the Common Coalition documents in the description below this video, and I want to know what you think. To me, it's not an open and closed case, but these questions are worth asking. And if you have technical know-how and have tested this out, well, talk to me and maybe I'll do another video about it. After the 2024 elections, Democrats were quick to say that American elections were unhackable because there were so many separate systems involved. In addition, it's really hard to keep a conspiracy when there's a lot of people involved in it. But to me, this seems like engineering challenges, not something that is actually impossible. Indeed, we've seen evidence of increasingly elaborate covert actions in just the last few years using digital technology. From the supply chain hack that the IDF used to insert bombs into the cell phones of Hezbollah operatives, and the Stuxnet hack that disabled Iran's nuclear program with malware was that like a decade and a half ago? There's also a vibrant marketplace for zero-day exploits that I have no doubt that someone with near unlimited resources could figure out how to use in order to rig an election. But perhaps the most obvious evidence of a takeover is how radically life is changing in America right now. In the first few months of this new American authoritarianism, we are being asked to obey in advance with a government's agenda or face arrest or even deportation to foreign prisons. Families are being targeted and then torn apart. Democratic leaders have been assassinated. This looks a lot like a no-holds-barred approach to technological advancement that Rocco's basilisk lays out. After all, if artificial intelligence is behind so many of the government's capabilities, do we really believe that the president is in control? Just maybe the people who are controlling the technology of the environment around us, the things we use every day, maybe they're the ones who are in charge of the fate of the nation. And that is a whole lot of motive. All right, what do you think? Tell me down in the comments. I'm guessing a lot of you will disagree with me, and that's okay because this is somewhat circumstantial. Thanks so much for watching this video on Rocco's Basilisk and Palantir. It means the world to me that you are here and that you support this kind of fiercely independent journalism. And I guess this was sort of commentary more than investigation. I'd love you to sign up for my weekly newsletter. It's at sgcarney.substack.com. And you'll get sort of free newsletters and updates about whatever it is that I'm working on. But my premium subscribers, the salt of the earth, they also get early access to my videos before they go live to the general public. And they keep this show on the road. There's also like a way to talk to me directly over there in like an internal like chat function that Substack has. And I sometimes post funny things over there. I'm only here because so many of you understand the value of my work, and I couldn't do it without you. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates. Thank you so much for all of my supporters on Patreon and on Substack who make this work possible. The contributions you give keep this sort of independent journalism on the air, and I really just could not do it without you. If you want to get early access to my work and get your name on the honor roll right over there, please sign up at the links down below. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates.